أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ثم ما بعد فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. With the will of Allah Jalla wa Ala, this is our third class, I think. Fourth already. MashaAllah. So we're a bit behind schedule. We were supposed to have started today with the beginning of Surah Amma. So I would like to hold on to what I have planned, inshallah. So you all know that we have the possibility, inshallah, to memorize the Quran together. Now, before we do that, I would like to share some things with you. So when it comes down to memorizing the Quran, today we are living a hype and a fashion, and where everybody thinks that he or she has to become a student of knowledge. This is not true. As a Muslim, you need to know what you need to know in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to purify yourself, and to worship is fiqh, to purify yourself is tasfiyah and tarbiyah, and then you have what? Knowing Allah, which are the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so much more. And that are the only three things you really need to know. And as for very difficult matters, then you just ask the scholars. So it was never the goal for every Muslim to become a student of knowledge. Now, the problem is that we are creating a hype where everybody thinks that he or she is a student of knowledge. But in reality, when you go and dig deeper, you see that ignorance is more present than knowledge. And that the way that people claim to, or the path that they are giving you, or presenting to you in order to become a scholar is very often a fake one. So, and this is why today very often I repeat this all the time: learn the Quran, learn how to read the Quran in 3 weeks, learn Arabic in 6 months. That doesn't exist. Yani, to learn a language, just try to think. Try to use, which you do. Like, let us use our brains. How long did it take you to get to speak the way you speak today? And they say, if you come to us 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week, you will speak the language. How did you learn your language? It was because you were raised in the midst of people speaking that language. You went to a school for 12 years, 14 years, longer, with people who spoke that language. You watched cartoons in that language. You read books in that language. So you were all the time connected to that language. So in order to learn a language, you need to be absorbed by that language. Not that you absorb the language, you are absorbed by the language. So this is why today, to be quite frank, very often there are a lot of claims because there are a lot of gains behind those claims. Being it popularity, being it money, being it whatever. And people are allowed to ask for money when they teach. That's okay. That's no problem. But the problem is that the false promises. The Arabic language is not an easy one, exactly as the English is not an easy one. If you want to be an expert at the English language, then you literally have to study a lot. So now to come back. The first question you need to ask yourself before you say, I want to memorize the entire Quran. Why? That's your first question. Your first question is, why do I want it? And very often you will see that your why is very abstract. Like, I want to please Allah. There are many ways to please Allah. I want to please Allah. Being good to your mother is pleasing Allah. I mean, so just to please Allah. And very often we give a reason which we would like to have. Because I want to protect the deen. Because I want to protect religion from decay and so much more. Are you already doing it? You don't have to wait until you memorize the Quran. So the real reason is, why do you want to memorize the Quran? That's the first question. The moment you know why you want to do something, and it becomes the biggest goal in your life, then all the other things which could take you away from your goal will seem to be small and little, and tiny. It is only when your goal is most important to you that you are able to overcome all the other obstacles. That makes sense, right? So why do you want to memorize the Quran? Do you have to memorize the Quran? You don't have to. You don't have to memorize the Quran. The only thing you need to memorize is Surah al-Fatiha, chapter al-Fatiha, and another surah in order to be able to pray. That's it. Why do you want to make it yourself difficult just because you hear people say memorize, memorize, do? I'm sorry, but this is a very real talk. Now, why do you want to burden yourself, not with the Quran? The Quran is never a burden. Why do you want to burden yourself day and night to memorize the Quran? And that's very often a question we don't ask ourselves. Because we look at the goal and we say, wow, and we look at the hadith and so forth. So whenever we have a goal, and that's the second thing, we need to compare our goals to our what? To our capacities. And our dreams to our realities. Because very often what we dream of is not really feasible. It's not really something I am able to do. Not because I'm dumb, but because maybe my life doesn't allow me. Memorizing the Quran is in need of dedication. It's in need of time. It's in need of freeing yourself. So if you are very busy, then you need to set realistic goals. Somebody in the desert will memorize the Quran in 5 months, 6 months, easy. Like easy. You in the desert, you memorize 3-5 pages like it's nothing. But when you're here, how are you going to memorize? Where are you going to find the time to memorize, to revise, to do all of that? How much sleep are you wanting to give up? Because you will have to look not for pockets. People say, I will fill these pockets of time in my life. That's not where you're going to do it. You need to sacrifice certain parts of your life, and it should be yours and not somebody else's. If you start memorizing the Quran, it shouldn't have an effect on your relationship with your wife or your husband or with your children. That all of a sudden you take away from your children's time, or we're not going to the park as much anymore. I'm not going to play with you as much anymore because I want to memorize the Quran. Then you should have done it before becoming a father or a mother, or a husband or a wife, or any profession which you are doing which may prevent you from doing it. So people now, the life you have already, that's the life where you have to do it. Because there is a reason why you are already living the life you have. Being married, being a father, being a mother, being having a certain job. So quitting what you already have is not the option. But trying to do what you want to do within that which you already have, preserving it, that's the only option. You can't stop being a father, you can't stop being a mother, you can't stop from working. Life becomes only far more difficult. So if you want to memorize the Quran, the first step is be realistic. People come to me, they say, give me a plan. I say, okay, memorize the Quran in 7 years. They say, wow, that's far too long. Too long. Are you being realistic or are you just dreaming? Now, what are you doing? And 7 years is good, The majority of people who ask me, when I see them 10 years later, they're still looking for a way to memorize the Quran. And if they would just have listened to somebody who gives them advice, who has been on the path of memorizing, then what? Then just follow. If people did something which you like to do, ask them how they did it. It's not rocket science, right? Ask Usain Bolt, how did you get there? And he will say, by doing this, this, this. Ronaldo, how did you get there? By this, this, this. So if you want to achieve what they did, then you have to do what they do. Results are or achievements is nothing more than a result of consistency. That is what a result is. Now, what you achieve is a result of being consistent, of being dedicated, of being true, of being genuine, of loving what you do and being driven by passion. If you see the Quran as a burden, you say, come on, I want to memorize it, and it's already a stress even before you begin, it's not for you. That memorizing and waking up during the night and before Fajr, you do it because you love it. You don't wake up and say, like that. And that's passion. Okay, so now to come back, the first thing you need to do when you want to memorize the Quran, you ask yourself why, and don't make up a why. Now, you can find many reasons. I want to go to paradise. What is in you? Is it social pressure? Is it the hype? What is it? That's number one. The second thing is to look at your personal life. And this is why I think something the majority among us would be able to do is to memorize 5 verses a week. 5 lines. 5 lines a week. That's a third of a page. If you do that, you will memorize the Quran in 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. That is just by 3 lines. Or 5 lines, sorry, by 5 lines. And then if you do 3 lines, well, that's good enough. You will do it maybe something again, like 7 years. 7 years. 3 lines without any stress. But what do people do? They want to achieve everything in a split of a second. And the higher you jump, the harder the fall. That's a Belgian expression, so I'm just translating it into English. I don't know if I have something similar. Something like that? Yeah? Is it exactly like I said it? Wow, mashallah. Usually I mess it up. Yes.
Isn't there an understanding that when you're memorizing, it shouldn't be just memorization, it should also be a deeper understanding of the ayahs?
Definitely.
But also implementing them, because
yes.
I've had the discussions where people say, well, I don't know how to implement the
yes.
ayah if I can't move on to the next thing.
Yes.
So how does that fit into the...
That fits in here, because what we are going to memorize is exactly what we are going to explain. I'm going to explain 5 lines per week. And I'm going to explain how to connect to them, how they should transform us, and how we can implement them all together with a deep understanding. So it will be technical and practical. So that's what we want to do. If I live that long, and if Allah allows me, then that we can go for 5 years, every week, 5 verses. We explain it, we know what it means, we know how to put it into practice, done. And like that, we do that every week. And in what's 5 years? Literally, it's nothing, 5 years. Can you imagine how long is the beginning of Corona period? When did it start? In March 2020 or 19? What was it? 20. We're almost 2 years. 2 years away from 2 years away of that. From that, it went like the blink of an eye. A lot of people say it's like 2020 never existed. It's like a year that was erased from our lives. So that's almost 2 years. Do that times 2 and 1 more year, and you're there. And 1 line a day, everybody can do that. Unless you have a difficulty memorizing, which doesn't mean that someone is dumb. It doesn't mean that someone's weak. But some people are stronger at memorizing than others. So you need to have a look at yourself. Am I strong at memorizing to start with? Because if I'm not strong at memorization, then let me concentrate on something else. Yes, your brain can be improved, but until you're 22, your memory is stronger than your understanding. And then your understanding of things grows and your memorization becomes weaker, which doesn't mean it's weak, but they meet somewhere in the middle. And then as you grow older, your understanding and your wisdom increases and your memorization decreases. That's the way we are. But if you start early, then it will take a long time before your memorization becomes as normal as the majority of the people. And this is why you see that people who memorized the Quran when they were 10 or 8, now that even when they're 40, 45 or 60, that their memory is still strong. They will consider it to be weak because they compare themselves to when they were what? Younger. I see my memory becoming much weaker. Like I'm 45, my memory is becoming weak. Before, maybe I had to read a poem once or twice and I would memorize it. Now I literally maybe need to read it 10 times. That's a very big difference, isn't it? Like between 10 and 2 or 10 and 1. That's like it's a disaster. So meaning, but I know that if I wouldn't have started at a young age with memorizing the Quran, that most likely I wouldn't need more than 10 times, or I would not be able to memorize it at all. So now what you need to do is you need to even adapt your life in order to increase your memory. So you're not just going to memorize the Quran. Memorizing the Quran is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. Even the way you memorize is connected to what you eat. High sugar levels make it difficult to memorize. A lack of sleep makes it more difficult to memorize. a lot of preoccupations, and your mind being set on different things makes it difficult for you to memorize. Memorizing in a place where you are distracted makes it more difficult to memorize. Connecting to sins, being it gossiping, being it other things, will make it more difficult to memorize. So you see that in order to memorize the Quran, you have to do a lot of things. It's not just like, let me just memorize the Quran. It is like, let me look at what I eat. Let me look at how I sleep. And even exercise is important when you memorize the Quran, because it has a good effect on your brain. Like in the book Spark, which was research, Spark, how exercising improves the working of the brain. And then I'm not going in details because I'm not a doctor, but that already, walking while you memorize, waking up in the early morning, exposing yourself to the rays of the sun, which are only found at the time of Fajr, and then it goes away. In early morning, sometimes they wake up. Is it heart patients that they wake up in the morning, or what is it?
Cardiac patients.
Yeah, cardiac patients. Why do they do that? Okay, can you find out?
Yeah.
I heard that the exposure to these rays, sun rays in the morning, have a positive effect on your body and the vitamins you need and so much more. So it's also exposing yourself to the sun. It is working out, or at least doing some fitness at home. So if you want to memorize the Quran, you need to know that your body is the temple, not figuratively speaking, of course. Your body is the house where this is going to happen. Your body is the house, and the soul within it wants to memorize the Quran. So you see, it goes far beyond what you think. Now you say, well, do people in Sudan and people in Morocco and these places which are very known for memorizing the Quran, like Morocco, like Sudan, Mauritania, they are really the top, they are top notch, right, in the world until today. Like, do the students do this? Do they watch what they eat? Do they exercise? No, because they start when they're 9. They start when they're 6. They are not in need of this. We live in an entirely different world. So we need to create a world around us, or which makes it possible for us to memorize the Quran. Does that make sense? But now, just my son Abdurrahman, he memorized the Quran when he was 17. I started with him when he was 3. Now, when he was 3, what would I do? He would not sit and memorize a lot. I would take him on my shoulders and we would walk, and then I would speak and he would repeat. So by the time he was 7, he memorized sort of the Juz of Mujadala, the this and the that, and then he had to stop for some time. But then from his 16 till his end of his 17, and he memorized the next half of the Quran in a year and a half. This was while he was going to school, while he was working out, and so much more. So he followed the advice, and bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, he was able to memorize. So the advice I've given has worked for more than one person. So this is why you have to look at whether you can do what I've just told you. Maybe you can say, I will just go for Juz Amma. That's good. It's good because we are going juz per juz. So our goal here is that you memorize now with me Juz Amma. That's it. You memorize Juz Amma with me. And then I will go for Juz Tabaraka, and then you choose for yourself. You say, well, it's not for me. I just want to attend the classes and understand. Good. But at least you finished one juz. And then there comes the second. Then there comes the third, the fourth, the sixth, the seventh, until we finish bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, 30 juz, God willing. In 5 years. 5 years is nothing. Not 5 years. How long?
4 years.
7 months.
7 months? So this, you memorize that one, Hakim, huh? Now, 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. So let us say 5 years. It's nothing. And it's possible even with the life you are living. So when you go home, you need to ask yourself the question, why? 2, can I, in the life I'm living, can I do this? Without disrupting the life I'm already living. So if you already have a lack of sleep, now you're going to sleep less. You have no time for your family, so you're going at the expense of your family. You're going to memorize more Quran. So this is really these are the questions you have to ask yourself, and this is why Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, "Yani, learn, study before you have responsibilities, and before having responsibilities, that's the time where it is. So if it is not 100% for you, you have your offspring." You know, like Shaykh Musa Nasr rahmatullahi alayhi, like he said, usually you don't want people to be stronger than you at something apart from your children. You always want them to be better than you, stronger than you, more knowledgeable than you, have more taqwa than you. So very often the message comes to us after we are already adults, and then messages are given to us which should actually be given to those who are younger than us and who don't have these responsibilities, not meaning that it's no longer possible for us, but that we need to know this. A lot of the books written by the ulama were for children. Tuhfatul Atfal, we're studying it. Oh, I'm a student of knowledge, I study the art of recitation. It's a kid's book. Ajrumiyah was written for kids. Like if you're going to have a look, for example, at al-Hadiyatul Alaiya, fiqh book in the Hanafi fiqh, it was li atfal al-katatib, and it was for the children in the mosque. Today we're studying it like, I want to become a jurist. Let me study that book. You know, sometimes we live in a kind of illusion. So we need to wake up before we start with anything. What is the reality of what I'm saying? Hifd al-Quran is giving up sleep without any doubt. Hifd al-Quran are even tears and fears. Tears because sometimes you're so tired, but you know you got to keep on going. Because it's no longer only the spiritual thing. You think like, oh, it's Quran, it's all harmony, flower power, lovey-dovey, beautiful story, 1001 nights between me and the Quran. Nope. It is a battle between you and sleeping. It's a battle between you and giving up on things you like. Oh, it's a sunny day. I don't care. I want to memorize the Quran. I stay where I am until I finish what I have to finish. So you see, like the example I just give, and we keep on giving it because it's right here. Like Hisham gave up a year of his university studies. I mean, do you know how difficult that is? That's delaying your life between brackets by a year. But do you know what the miracle is? Is that eventually in that year he got there. SubhanAllah. He said 1 year, you know, that's a very difficult decision because we look at it, yeah, it's normal, it's the Quran, everybody would do this. Where are those everybody's? Where are these everybody's? So it's a very difficult thing which happens in your midst. In your midst. So try to learn from it. No. So this is why, barakallahu fikum, as I said, it's possible. One, if you do it step by step, if you don't overdo it, and not at the expense of the quality of the life you are leading and having. Allah doesn't want that. Because that would go against the message of Islam. If you not memorize the Quran, you become stressed, you become tired, you become sick, your body becomes sick. Because it has a good effect on your soul, but maybe you are in need of 7 hours sleep and now you're going to sleep 5 hours. You will be literally exhausted, which will have an effect on your health. So what are you going to do? I can't make that program for you. The reason being that your lives are as different as you are individuals. So I can only give you general advice, and then you need to make your program. I can only tell you 5 verses a week. You are going to 5 lines a week. And Saturday, Sunday is your day off. You're just going to repeat it in your prayers. The 5 verses you have memorized, just in your prayer. The 5 lines, just in your prayer. You don't have to learn something new because your brain, now, if you burden your brain too much, then it will become weaker and not stronger. So that's what you're going to do. So now, how am I going to memorize? One, You memorize through imitation. Now you are going to listen to a recitation. I have a recorded version of Juz Amma where I read at a pace which makes it easy for you to what? To read after me. So it will literally be أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون. And then you just need to listen to it if you want, or you listen to somebody else. But that are the 5 verses that we are going to learn. Every time when we come to the class, these verses will be explained. So the 5, I always say verses, 5 lines that we are going to memorize that week are exactly the 5 lines that I'm going to explain with all the details you need, so that you never need another tafsir anymore. We'll speak about the depth of the language, the practical, the technical side of it, and how to implement it. Done. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And before you know it, you're 5 years older and you're 5 years wiser. So, and now some people say, no, I want to go for it. No, I want 1 page a day. I want this. Okay, good. I will speak to you in 1 year. You know the story of is it the rabbit and the turtle?
Yeah, tortoise.
Tortoise.
The hare, sorry.
The hare.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're both quick. So so this is the story of in knowledge. So everything I've said, you literally need to take that with you. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to record a video as well where I show you how you best memorize. So it will be filmed, and then I will show you how I memorize, how I would memorize before. And that will help you. Not meaning by this that this is the only way to memorize. There are many ways. The best way is the old way, the Sudani way, the Moroccan way. It is where you have the tablet, not iPhone, iTablet, the wooden tablet, and you write on it with a wooden pen and an ink, and you write it yourself. So that is the best way. It's much stronger because you are not only visualizing, you are also motorically, you are using your body, you're doing all these things which will improve. The more you put into your memorization, you listen, you see, you move. That's the perfect combination, isn't it? So this is why I would advise you what you memorize. If you don't have that tablet, then at least a piece of paper, for example, A4s, or whatever it may be, and you write it with a pencil. Okay, so stay with me. So what are you going to do now? You look at what you have written, the 5 lines you want to memorize. And now what you are going to do, you are just going to read the first verse. عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون. And now you remove with a gum, you remove the amma. Then you keep on looking. Your brain will register what you have removed. And now there's just يتساءلون, but you keep on looking at the paper. عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون. Now you remove يتساءلون. But you keep on looking at the same space, because vaguely you can still see it. Vaguely, because you rubbed it away, but never you gummed it away, but nevertheless you will see these tiny things. And then you have a white piece of paper, and you keep on reading, and all of a sudden you hide only that part behind that piece of paper. But you keep on looking at the same space. عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون عما يتساءلون. Before you know it, it's like literally burned into your what? Yeah, what? Yes. And then you are going now to start with the second verse, but always by connecting it with the first verse. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم. عن is gone. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم. عن النبأ. نبأ is gone. I come it away. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم. العظيم is gone. Now just you see the shade of what you have rubbed away. You come away. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم, until you can say it without thinking 10 times in a row. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم again 10 times. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ. No, you doubt it. You have to start again. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم عما يتساءلون. If you have that, next one. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون الذي هم فيه. And this is the way you do it. And every time with that white paper again, after you have memorized it. This is a way that will be very beneficial to you. But it will only work if you practice it. Now, we are only doing one line a day, isn't it? It's only one line a day. So that would mean عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون. That's it. I think you will need half an hour. What are you going to do in the morning? That is how you do it. You need to make time for yourself. The best thing is like that magnetic behavior, meaning that you connect your memorization in the morning to something you're already doing, so that you don't need to look for an empty space in time, because usually we don't have that. Meaning, if you wake up for Fajr now at 6, for example, or at 6:30, you wake up for Fajr at 6:30, now you're going to wake up at 6, just half an hour. The body can handle half an hour. But then you're not going to go to bed half an hour later than you usually do, but half an hour earlier. Because you don't want that half an hour to be at the expense of your sleep. So if you go to bed at 10, now you go to bed at 9:30. Because you're going to wake up at 5:30 instead of 6. So your body will not feel it. Then eventually you will get used to that, waking up earlier, and then the half hour will not matter anymore, because your body got used to it. So you half an hour before, and then during the day in your prayers, you are going to repeat it. In Fajr, you're going to read it. In Dhuhr, you're going to read it. In Asr, you're going to repeat it. Repeating meaning you sit down and you see if you can say it 10 times in a row without doubting. If you can't, then you write it down again, you look at it until you are able to say it again 10 times without thinking. And then you pray your Asr and you read this, you pray your Maghrib, you read this, you pray your Isha, you read this, you pray your Witr, you read this, and then before you go to bed, you read it 10 times again. And then bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal, the next morning when you wake up, you are going to repeat the same verses before starting with the new memorization. Because you will not allow yourself to memorize something new when your previous memorization is still weak. Okay, so these are memorization techniques, right? So you also need to improve your memory. Now I'm like walnuts, for example, you eat some more fish, some walnuts, also things with iron like lentils, for example, is very, very important. Any your omegas, you need to take them as well. All of these things, vitamin D, either by exposing yourself to the sun or either by having your blood tested so that you come at a correct level. All of that is super duper important. Because if you don't do that, your memory will be but as strong as the energy you give it. Now, so it's not like, oh, it's a spiritual thing. Allah will just bestow it upon me. It doesn't exist like that. You are a body made of flesh and bone. So if you don't take care of that body, well, then the memorization is not going to happen. Does that make sense? Also, very important, if you want to memorize a lot, then you need to let go of this more often. You need to let go of your phone more often, because it will have an immediate impact, because you are teaching your brain not to look at something for longer than 3 seconds. TikTok 1, TikTok 3, TikTok 4, TikTok 5, and then Instagram, Facebook, this, that. and you're surfing all the time, and you're teaching your brain not to concentrate on something for longer than 3 seconds. So this is why memory now, our attention span is like 6 seconds. It's less than a goldfish. They say it's even less now. People can't concentrate because you're always multitasking. Multitasking doesn't exist. Multitasking was originally a term that was used for computers at the very beginning with Bill Gates and stuff. And that was a computer looking like it's multitasking. Because even a computer wouldn't back then be multitasking. It would segment between what it's doing, but it was so quickly that it would look that it was doing two things at the same time. And then they started using that for people doing two things at the same time. But in reality, when you look at it from your neurological point of view, we can't concentrate on two things. It is our concentration that goes back and forth between two things. And it's always at the expense of something else. And this is why Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah didn't give a person two hearts in his body. And you can't concentrate on two things at the same time. Okay? So why did I say this last part? How did I come to that?
Let go of your device.
Yes. If you learn, you teach your brain not to concentrate for a long time on something, then it will be very difficult to what? To memorize. Also, this teaches us instant gratification. Now, we swipe and we get what we want. We look for something, we get what we want. So now we are used to have everything but a click away. Everything goes very quickly. And that's the instant gratification. As with the Quran, you have a long-term project of 5 years. So there is no instant gratification. It means like 5 years. And this is why you need to set your goals, but you also have to need step ladders and milestones. But I will write all of that down so that you feel that you have accomplished something on your way. Because otherwise it looks like the end of the road is the Quran, like, wow, 5 years away. So that also has an impact on what we do. So this is why before you go to bed, and I'm not trying to be your father or your elder brother or younger brother, whatever, but before you go to bed, at least an hour before you go to bed, don't be on your phone, because the blue light in your phone gives your body the impression that it's day, that it's still day, and before your body understands that it's night, takes an hour to an hour and a half. It will disturb your sleep, the quality of your sleep. Also, and I'm serious. Like, put your phone on airplane mode when you go to bed. The Wi-Fi as well. Protect yourself, because all of that has an impact on your brain, has an impact on your health and on your sleep. So memorizing the Quran is knowing everything which can disturb your memorization of food, of impressions, of landscape, of people, of whatever it may be, so that you preserve your ideal situation to memorize the Quran in. And now that you hear this, you most likely understand why the majority of people don't memorize the Quran. It looks like when we hear people speak, memorize Quran. How many people do you know who memorize the Quran? Who literally memorize the Quran? How many? But how many people speak of memorizing the Quran? So because we spoke so much of it, we have the impression that the entire ummah memorizes the Quran. While the Huffaz al-Quran, male and female memorizers of the Quran, are dying. They're going. And social media culture doesn't make it easier because of the former mentioned reasons. Not meaning that social media is a bad thing, but it influences everything we do. Okay? So I think when you were expecting how to memorize the Quran, if I think we had a different thing in mind, right? So it's really a lot about preparation and creating an ideal situation, and then you have the part of the memorizing that should be happening. So some people find it easy to revise the reading of the Quran, and that's the way we used to do it in Sudan. We would revise the Quran while walking. Now we would walk. We would be in a very big empty space. There would be a tree in the middle. We were not doing tawaf around the tree. We were not doing shirk. There happened to be a tree in the middle. So we would literally walk in circles, and everybody would revise the Quran, you know. And you would do that for an hour or an hour and a half, and then you would go to the Shaykh, sit with him, and then you would read to the Shaykh. The only problem there where I was, you imagine yourself, I was 18, right? And I left a quite modern, I think, easy life. And I came there, and subhanAllah, they would literally hit people there, which is haram. This is not allowed. You can't hit people. They were literally, if people didn't memorize well, they would hit their feet. If people did, because people, sometimes you see these documentaries and they say, no, these are just people who are against Islam. Muslims don't do this. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw children being locked up because they didn't memorize the Quran. I was afraid. Yani, I was literally afraid, but they never touched me. Most likely because they knew I had an embassy somewhere. but they would literally hit the children on their feet, which is very painful. You should not hit anywhere, but this is a very painful place. And they would literally chain them until they would memorize. That was there. And if they would run away, they would hold them upside down and they would hit their feet. And I was there memorizing Quran. I was literally very afraid. But you know, I was young. If I were to be there now, I couldn't have stayed, because it's just not in line with what you think to be correct. But there was only one bus a week, so there was one bus a week, and when they dropped me, I said, when should I, if I want to go back, where do I wait? He says, here. There was like literally nothing. So when is the next bus back home, yani back to the capital? And he said, in a week. I said, well, what day? He said, well, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. I said, what time? He said, somewhere between 6 in the morning and 7 in the evening. I said, okay. So I was there. It had its charms as well, and it was difficult and it was beautiful at the same time. I remember when I arrived there after taking so many different buses. Like the last bus I took, literally you could see through the floor and you just saw the concrete beneath you. And then you would get off the bus, walk for an hour or so. And I was apparently the first European who set a foot there. Like a lot of these children never saw somebody with another color of skin. They even didn't know it existed there. I mean, I'm talking about 94. Now I'm 94. And there was no internet there whatsoever. So when I arrived, they were like, they didn't know what it was strange, because nobody ever came there to memorize the Quran. And so they came to me and they looked at me, and the children started laughing, and it was so beautiful. And anyway, and then I was there. I slept the first night, and we had to sleep in the desert cold. And desert cold is like literally very cold. Have cracks in your skin. It is terrible. But we didn't have a mattress. We didn't have a cushion. We didn't have blankets. It's just there was a concrete space where you would just lay down, and then you would do it with what you have. Maybe you take a rock. You take a rock literally, and you take that in. That's your pillow, and you put like your shawl or whatever over that rock, and that's how you sleep. And then you have to choose. Well, do I take this to cover myself against the cold, or do I put it over the rock in order not to be harmed by anyway? So then 2:30 at night was the first night was terrible. It was literally terrible. Like they would wake us up with flashlights, and they would literally come and they would say, wake up, and they would stand like that. I said, where am I? There were no guns. It was not a terrorist training camp. And they would literally wake us up like that. It was not like romantic, like I'm here to memorize the Quran in the middle of the desert. It was like, wake up. I said, okay, we wake up. And then you would memorize the Quran from 3 at night until 6 in the morning, something. Just memorizing. Then it was the morning prayer, and then we had our cup of tea. I already told this. And we would stand in row, and the one who memorized the most of the Quran would be the first in row, and the one with the least Quran, me, was at the end. But by the end, when they come to you, the tea is cold, very bitter, and you would have just a glass like this, and that's what you start your morning, kick your morning off with, and then you would memorize again until 10 o'clock, and then you would eat. that was wheat and milk fresh from the cow, not boiled, whatever, boom, like that, with a bit of sand in it. And that's what you would eat. And they weren't bothered. They knew this, but we would, for me, it was new, right? I come from an atheist Belgian background. So for me to dip with my fingers or with my hands into a bowl with 8 different people whose hands, and mine included, were still a bit sandy, and just you go in it and you eat. Well, I was sick the first day. So that was, and then you had some little bit of water to drink, and then you would sleep until Dhuhr. Then you would wake up, you would memorize till Asr. Then from Asr to Maghrib, you would what? You would memorize again. And then we would eat our second meal, which was, I don't know what it was. Every time I ate it, I became sick, but I don't know what it was. So we ate that, and the rice wasn't very, there were still like some kind of rocky things in the rice, because it wasn't really clean. So I lost a bit of my teeth. And then also, sometimes if we would have lentils, sometimes we would have these tiny little worms in it. And in the beginning, you try to fish them out, but you can't, so you just eat it. It's protein. So no, I'm not exaggerating. And then it was Maghrib, and between Maghrib and Isha, we would rest. That was our, and then you had these elderly women of that tribe. They would make a certain kind of pancakes or something. It was dark, there was no electricity. The only place that had electricity was the mosque with a generator that would fail to provide us with light for the most of the time. But anyway, that is where we were. And then it would be so nice. You would eat these pancakes, and literally you would sit under a, I don't know, the sky, there were more stars than there was blackness and darkness. It's like you would see stars and darkness instead of seeing darkness in a couple of stars. It was so beautiful. It's like literally beautiful. And then we would sit there, and we would wait for the man to come back from the capital. He would bring some Coca-Cola and Mirinda, which is a sweet kind of Fanta. Fanta is already sweet, but like 3 times as sweet. And he would bring it in a cool box. But by the time it arrived, it was warm. But it was not as warm as if you would have. Anyway, it was warm. And so we would drink that and have that pancake, and then it was Isha. And then after Isha, we would, for an hour and a half, we would go around and he walk around, and then we would go to the Shaykh and memorize. I saw people memorizing 12 pages a day. Literally 12 pages a day. Now, I at the beginning found it very difficult, but soon I found myself like memorizing 3 to 5 pages a day. But at the beginning it was a struggle. But it goes quickly because you have nothing to distract you. But then it was Friday. Friday in the morning they brought us somewhere with a tractor, and then we had to plow, and we had to do so many things. And I remember very well that I was there, and I had my imama, that you wear to protect yourself against the sun. People wear it here. Sometimes I don't know why. Not meaning that it's wrong. You wear what you want, but they would wear this in order to protect their brain from the heat, right? So I had it, but then all of a sudden, I went one day and I didn't have it with me. So I ripped the under part of my garment. I ripped it, and then I made an imam of it. And that was Friday in the morning. Then we would have the khutbah of Jum'ah, the Friday sermon, and then the rich people of Sudan, they would come because they wanted hasanat, they wanted to do good work. So they would come to people who would memorize the Quran in the desert. They would literally say, you come with me, you come with me, and like they would choose like 10 people per family, and then they would take you to their villas. And then you had like a brain freeze, like you come from the desert plowing you're eating, I don't know, stones and worms. And now you go to, like, everything was there, meat and cooked milk and vegetables and fruit. We didn't have vegetables and fruit. And then you would sleep on a mattress, and then they would let you shower. We almost didn't shower there. It was like a little bit of water, you had to do it with it. That's it. So that was then, we would spend the night there until the morning, and then they would bring us back. And then you had a week again. And in the beginning, you start looking forward to that Friday, but after a while, you don't care. Because the connection you find with the Quran and the lack of distractions make you like very harmonious and happy and balanced. So it's still a nice thing, but as it is the case with everything, once you did it and you had that high of doing something new, the second time is never the same. With the Quran, it's not. Every time you do it, it's new. Are you okay? Right. You almost fell, right? Okay. So anyway, this is the journey we are about to embark on, bi'idhnillah. So by next week, I want you to find out for yourself whether you want to do it, not wish to do it, not dream to do it, why you want to do it, and whether it is possible for you to do it, and what are you going to do in order to make that possible. And you write it down. I prefer if it's on a Word document, you print it and you give it to me. Because all the people that go on that journey with me, I want to keep track. So I will follow this. How now will I know whether you have memorized it? So maybe 100 people will memorize. How am I going to do this? Well, that's barely impossible. But when we gather, we are going to recite it with one voice. And then I will listen. So the women will come first to the class. I will listen to them. Then the men enter, and then I will listen to the men reciting. People who have a problem with memorization, I will hear it immediately. Now, because it will be not very loud, so everybody who doesn't read will be very, trust me, inshallah. So that's how we are going to do it. And also by means of a link you will be given, which will allow you to read it correctly. Don't just listen to any reader. I will give you some of the reciters which I believe to recite correctly, whom I believe to recite correctly, and then you listen to them, or you listen to the link of my own recitation. And then bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, we start next week, bi'idhnillah. So how does that sound? Okay. Who thinks that he or she wants to be a part of that journey? Okay, good. Okay. Why? Nobody should have answered, right? Because you first want to know if you really want to be a part of the journey and why. Remember? But it's beautiful. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you. And so can you do that by next week? Barakallahu fikum. So do that by next week. Are there any questions about what I've said? Yes, Shaykh.
When it comes to memorizing,
Yes,
can people memorize the way they normally do, or do you need to learn the rules of the Tajweed first before memorizing?
Well, we have two ways of Tajweed, the technical and the practical. So if people listen and imitate and reproduce the sounds, then usually that's okay. Because at the very beginning, people would not learn through Tajweed, but through imitation and correction. Yes.
How do you improve your intention? Because obviously there's a disconnect between, let's say, I'm doing it just because I want the reward from it, to I'm doing it to really and truly and sincerely for Allah's sake.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get from one to the other?
But you can have more than one intention. Yeah. You can have many intentions. As long as they are genuine and beautiful, it's okay. Like if you say, I want to memorize the Quran so that I can boast, well, that's a problematic intention, isn't it? You can even say, I want to memorize the Quran so that I can inspire people to memorize it because it's a forgotten art. That's a good intention. I want to memorize the Quran because if I memorize the entire Quran, that will be of benefit to my parents on the Day of Judgment. That's also a good intention. So as long as the intention is not boasting, not standing out from the rest, and rising above the crowd, then that's okay. That's okay. Somebody else? Okay. Who memorizes an entire juz? You? Okay, then how many juz do you memorize?
Like certain parts are not like, but definitely like one, maybe
two. Okay, that's good. So nobody apart from him memorizes an entire juz. Is that correct? Okay. So inshallah, we will memorize Juz Amma together. So then you have 1/30 of the Quran that you understand, that you read, that you memorize and know how to practice. So this is bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal, what we're going to do. Starting next week, you will have your first 5 verses, inshallah. So how is this going to work? I'm going to explain the 5 verses, then you memorize them so you know what you are memorizing. Understand? Yes. Okay, any other questions you have? Nobody? Yes.
There's a question here. I'm not sure if logistically it's possible. They're asking, what about the people that are abroad? Don't they?
They can do exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And if there are not many, they can maybe send their memorization to me. But it's something which they have to address Karima for. And then if there are not too many people, I can listen to their recitation. They just send an audio and I can listen to them. But for the rest, it will be the same.
When will we do Surah al-Fatiha?
Surah al-Fatiha, huh? That's a good question. But we will start with Juz Amma. Surah al-Fatiha has already been explained. So you can find it online, inshallah. Yes.
If you don't want to memorize very strong content, can you?
Yes. So the class is not only for those who want to memorize. The class is literally teaching what the meanings are, what you have to do, regardless of you memorizing it or not. Somebody else? Khalas? Okay, thank you so much. So next week it will be very interesting. It will be nice to see what the Quran means, inshallah. That will be our main focus. Just tafsir, explain the Quran, nothing else. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Don't forget your homework by next week.